Alright, this video is going to serve as a tutorial for the second video for part 3 in the Utility Shed Design Guide for CEA Prerequisite Training. As we take a look at this section view, we're going to start detailing it a little bit more. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the crop region. So the crop region allows us to go through and kind of, clear some things out a little bit. One thing is I'm going to move to the Annotate tab, and under the Detail panel, I'm going to start off first with looking at Detail Components. So Detail Components, if I load the family, you can take a look at Detail Items, so at the main level of the U.S. Imperial Library, and see Detail Items. I'm going to go to Wood and Plastic, and you can add some detailing in to various views, a lot of times in a section view. I'm going to go to Wood Framing, and I'm going to choose Nominal Cut Lumber Section, and I'm going to say Open. It's going to ask me what size I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I choose 2x4 and say OK. And here, Nominal Cut Lumber. So if you see here, it's got what would be the butt end of a 2x4 that we would see in that section view cutaway. I'm going to hit the space bar to flip it, and then I can kind of see how it snaps. The top of it will line up with the top, and then I'm going to put one right below it like that. So that's going to represent the double top plate that we would see in the wall framing. Down at the bottom, let's see what would have the sole plate or the sill plate down at the bottom. Click and place that detail item in. While we're down here at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and do the detail component again, load the family, and I'm going to go up a level, up 2 levels actually, to the detail items. Go to metals, common work results for metals, and here you have metal fastenings. So what we have is we've got bolts, and actually we want anchor bolts, which looks like something like this, hook side, or something like this. So I usually use something along this line, anchor bolts, hook side, say open. And right now the size of this one is way too large, 1.5 inch. But if you hit the drop down in the type selector, 1/2 inch size will go through, so you can see really quite large anchor bolts that we can use. And then they've got 7/8, and there we go. So 7/8 is pretty big as well. So let's see what 5/8 looks like. All right, so here's this one. If you click to set it, so the top of the nut will actually sit on the top of the 2x4. If you select the anchor bolt, it's actually kind of parametric, so you can actually shorten the length of the anchor bolt that you need, and you can also kind of shorten the amount of kind of return that you have. Here it's giving me an error, so I'm going to go ahead and hit undo. So apparently it doesn't like, it's trying to keep some constraints, but I can go through and kind of bring that up a little bit, so that looks a little bit more appropriate. All right, so along with the detailing items as well, not to go into too much detail, you can add as much as you need to with a lot of that. So for example, we could always add in a here in a previous, here when I take a look at loading the family, for example, you could always add in blocking for the roof. So wood and plastic, wood framing, nominal cut lumber section. And then we'll choose, since that's a 2x8 on the framing, we'll choose that from the list. And I'll have to hit the drop down. Since I already loaded the 2x4, the 2x8 will just be added. Looks like it doesn't do anything, but then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place this pretty close to where I need it. But I will need to go through and select it in order to rotate it. So as I rotate, and I can kind of do that as much as I need to. There we go. So, and then you can always place that a little bit further down into where the rafters would be. All right, so as you take a look, one of the things here we also have is you have a detail insulation item. So you want to click on insulation. By default, the insulation width is at 3.5. So I'm going to actually, and it goes right from the middle. So right from the middle of the post, I click, and then you'll see it starts putting insulation into the wall. I'm going to go all the way down until I hit the top of the next one. So here we just put insulation in the wall to detail that. If we want to change detailing to put into for the roof, we will need to put in, this is going to be at 7 1/4. So for the actual size of the 2x8, and then as you put that in, you'll see it fits perfectly with our rafters that we put in. So there's some of the detailing items that we need to consider. And from here on out, you'll see that in number 14, they give you a list of items that you need to detail. So I'm going to start from the bottom and kind of work my way up. As I do that, I'm going to go over to the text panel and choose the text option. Here, I'm going to see that I've got a 2 segments option. So I'm going to click that. And from this component here, I'm going to first select what it is I'm pointing to. You'll see you get an arrow that points out and you can draw. I'm going to click, that's going to set a bend in there. So for a 45 liter line, and then I'm going to go ahead and click to set that. When I do that, it's going to go through and give me my text detailing. So here, this is going to be a 6-inch concrete slab. And when I click off of it in the white space, it will go through and provide that text. This is pretty large text for this. So when you select the text, you may want to change this down to 3/32 Arial. So then that way it kind of fits. The other thing is after you get this done, you can always kind of grab and position these. You do want these leader lines to kind of show right about the 45 and to be able to utilize in that particular case. I think I'm going to drag mine out a little bit more down there, so it's going to cross through some different points and go from there. All right, so text tool, and we just continue to kind of point. I like to kind of try to have the kids line these points up. So then that way, and here from the text option, so let's do 2x4 studs at 24 inches on center. And when I click off of it, I can actually just hit the type drop down, and that would go through and do the same thing. So actually I need to do that to start out with before I started doing that, but that's okay. So we can always go back and change that. Okay, 1/2-inch plywood sheathing. So I'm going to try to zoom in here, click approximately where that plywood sheathing would be at. So it's right underneath our siding layer, and we are looking at 1/2-inch plywood sheathing. We are looking at the next layer would end up being cedar siding. So again, you want to click off. If you hit enter, it just provides you a new line there. And then you end up having on the inside, as noted, you have 1/2-inch gypsum wallboard. Right here at the insulation, we're just going to go through and call that. So batt insulation. And then as we move into the roof components, we'll end up seeing that here on the very edge, so we've got asphalt shingles. We are going to have on the plywood layer, so we will say this is 1/2-inch plywood sheathing. Right about here in the middle somewhere, we're going to do 2x8 rafters at 24 inches on center. And our last one here is we'll just go ahead and note that also in the roof we have batt insulation. So this will go through. I'm going to cancel out of the tool, right clicking twice, change that type to 3/32. I'm going to drag this over where it's kind of somewhat close to the others and adjust my lines. So I usually like to keep these fairly neat, kind of organized, try to keep all the bends in the same position, and then that way that kind of finishes up a lot of these different things. So this is going to be going to be ready for our drawing next, and that'll be what we cover in the next video.